Hey, this is Communication for Leaders, the show for developing your leadership skills. Today we are going to talk about helping others deal with adversity in multiple aspects and give you research-backed information to help you become a better leader. We're a group of 6 college students studying leadership and becoming leaders ourselves. Here with us today we have me, Charlie Abendroth,
Michaela Roberts,
Emily Camacho,
Gabrielle Avery,
Micaiah Rhodes,
and Brenna Tender.
We have some great information to cover, so let's get started. First, let's talk about our topic super quick, helping others deal with adversity. That seems like a daunting task, full of anxiety and uncertainty, since we're all trying to figure out our own problems in the first place, right?
Right.
But leaders need to develop this skill. Our topic is based out of Chapter 9 of the book, Building Leaders. There are 6 parts to helping others deal with adversity. These are focus and clarity, communicate, touch, remove barriers, equity takes center stage, and projecting what you may not feel.
Hey, this is Michaela Roberts, and I'm introducing the importance of clarity and focus. Tasks are difficult when you don't know what you're doing, right?
Right.
I mean, how can you build that shelf you bought from Amazon without having instructions? I tried that one time, and it definitely did not work. So it only makes sense that as leaders, we need to be crystal clear and frame concepts. In other words, give the instructions for our followers. I'm going to make another little analogy here. Has anyone here used the AI image creator?
Oh my gosh, yes, I love that.
It's fun, right? But it definitely does not understand a lot of things. You have to be crystal clear with what you're asking it to create. It can't read your mind. You have to describe all the details that you want. This is like leadership. Our followers can't read our minds to see the vision we picture. We as leaders need to make sure our description of the picture is crystal clear so our followers can see that image and draw it out on their own. We can't sit with them every single step of the way. So we need to give them the vision from the start to give them the framework to work on their own. But in the aspect of crisis or adversity, clarity and focus are essential to getting through. In a study published by the Scandinavian Journal of Psychology, clarity was studied in group meetings. The study is called Effectiveness in Top Management Group Meetings, the role of goal clarity, focused communication, and learning behavior. Pretty straightforward. There were multiple hypotheses, but I'm only going to touch on the first 2. Hypothesis 1 states, there is a positive relationship between goal clarity and team effectiveness in management meetings. And hypothesis 2 says there's a positive relationship between focused communication and team effectiveness in management meetings. Both of these statements were fully supported by their findings. So to put this simply, both focus and clarity promote team effectiveness. Now that we know that focus and clarity make teams more effective, we can take this over to crisis management. This is more on the business side of things, just due to the fact I'm focusing on a study in a business aspect, but it can be utilized in other areas of leadership. By using these strategies of creating focus and clarity in team meetings, leaders can better prepare for the future or just get through the next day. We interviewed Professor Boyd, an associate professor of leadership in the Agricultural Leadership and Development Department at Texas A&M. We asked him an important aspect to know about adversity. He said that adversity always has an end. In terms of focus, we as leaders need to make sure our followers understand that adversity comes to an end and to keep persevering. To sum everything up, we as leaders help others deal with adversity and crisis by having clarity and focus. This is not just during times of adversity, but needs to be implemented before, during, and after a crisis to ensure your team is well prepared and can effectively deal with adversity.
Hello, Gabrielle Avery here. Let's dive right into my topic, communication. We all tend to think we're masters of communication.
I know I sure do. What do you mean? We constantly communicate all day, every day.
Right, we're constantly talking and communicating to our friends, peers, coworkers, boyfriends, girlfriends, moms and dads. Even more so, many people's main job is to talk. I'm doing it right now with you all. We learn and teach from communicating. It is vital, especially in today's world. Not just communication in itself, but learning the means and importance on how to communicate properly makes the difference. If you don't believe me on how important communication is, here's a fact. In an article published by Sherwin P. Moriali and Judy C. Pearson called Why Communication Education is Important, took the time to collect and publish annotations, including 99 articles, commentaries, and publications spanning from 1955 to 1999, all of which demonstrated the importance of the study of communication. Believe me now?
Yeah, I do. Definitely.
Communication plays an important role in the development of a person. It furthers relationships with society and others. Having communication skills can help mold your social and political lives as well as develop boundaries in every aspect. Learning how to communicate can help you dominate the workforce. It enhances relationships with bosses, coworkers, and customers. You're probably wondering, okay, so how do I communicate properly then? Communication is something that is learned. So pick up a book, take a class, and learn from those who are equipped with the knowledge to help you. Communication is learned, but then it is also practiced because it is a practice. But what about when we are dealing with adversity?
Yeah, what about when we're dealing with adversity?
Adversity is dealing with difficulties and problems. Does communicating still come easy, or is it hard?
I think it's easy, but it can be hard at times.
Right. Emerging leaders see communication during adversity just a little bit differently. According to our textbook, Paving the Path for Emerging Leaders, most leaders believe that it's practical to fill in, as in communicate, with their team as soon as they have their goals, company goals, new ideas, plans, whatever it may be, all figured out. Our book refers to communication as a faucet, and leaders will turn it down to a slow drip when really the drain needs to be wide open. It's impossible to over-communicate, especially when you're leading a group of people through a time of change and adversity. It's important to remember that when people don't know, they make up rumors that will fill those gaps of misunderstanding when things are under-communicated. So long story short, learn how to communicate and communicate well.
Wow, Gabby, that was super insightful. Another aspect of crisis communications that sometimes is overlooked is the role of touch in leadership. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear touch in pertaining to leadership?
Probably a creepy old man boss.
Or like a lawsuit.
I think these are super normal things to come to mind, but touch is actually a really good tool for people to use when it comes to leading people, especially in times of crisis. The formal term for touch in a time of crisis is prosocial touch. The Modeling Neuropsychiatric Disorders and Laboratory Animals Institution defines prosocial behavior as actions that are taken by an individual in response to the distress of another individual, which ultimately leads to the liberation of that individual from the distressing situation. This is something that we do all the time without even thinking about it, and it can be a really good tool for leaders when used well. Thinking about touch in leadership and during crisis communication makes me think of these two women named Cheryl and Betty that I know. These two women have been friends for going on 60 years this year. One thing that they would tell you is that was a defining moment in their friendship was when Cheryl's dad passed away when she was 11. Betty came over to her house and sat with her for hours and hours, just holding her hand. Betty showing up for her by means of physical touch and just sitting with her helped Cheryl to mourn the loss of her father and also was an important moment in their friendship. Her use of physical touch helped Cheryl to feel better for a lot of reasons, which we can go into as we look into the Journal of Natural Mechanisms of Comforting, Prosocial Touch and Stress Buffering by Kayla Y. Lim and Wee-Hee Hong. The impact of physical touch on stress in both human and animal interactions are studied in this journal. Physical touch doesn't have just a physical impact.
What other types of impact can it have?
Such a good question. Stress, which is characterized by experiencing anxiety and emotional or physical discomfort, activates the neuroendocrine, sympathetic, adrenomedullary, and hypothalamic pituitary and adrenal systems and produces physiological and behavioral changes in response to stress. Physical touch releases beta endorphins in cerebrospinal fluid that help us to feel better and decrease stress.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Physical touch is a really good tool for leaders when used well. It can show people about how much you care about them, especially in times of crisis and in times of stress. Something really cool that this journal talked about is that these responses to stress and to prosocial behavior is not only experienced in humans, but also in animals. Touch is such a useful tool that we don't even realize how much it can help us and how much good it does when used correctly. It's why we should be really intentional with our touch, especially in times of crisis, and use it for the good of the people that we're leading.
Hey guys, this is Emily Camacho, and I'm here today to talk to y'all about removing barriers. So what are barriers, and how do we remove them in leadership? In our textbook, it addresses removing barriers as encouraging leaders to see what stumbling blocks and common irritants and barriers can be taken off of team members' plates. Now, this can be a balancing act though, because we don't want our team to slip up and mess up when they're struggling, but we also can't take every single responsibility on ourselves, right guys?
Right.
So by the end of the day, we just want what's best for our team. We want to get the job done, but also help them learn skills and solve problems. So as a leader, we're called to mitigate our team and be able to remove those barriers for them while also having the fluid of our work continue. In an article called Removing the Barriers, a study of conditions affecting teaching innovation by Christine Hawkins, it talks about this professor who basically is switching his teaching situation to improve his students' learning. He does this by making his student teaching student focus. That means that the professor is focusing on what is best for the students, what helps them grow. So by doing this, he thought that it'd be best to observe his team. This is a really cool skill that we can apply in any leadership position that we're in. Getting to take a step back before stepping into that leadership role and just observing your team. How do they work? What works best for them? What skills are hard for them? What are they struggling in? And then getting to review that information that you have just taken. This is what the professor did, and he got to talk about his results before he became a professor, so knowing what was good for them, what was receptive to them, and what was really hard for them. This is a really cool concept when it comes to removing barriers, because when we're able to see that a barrier has come up and is really hurting our team, we can know this because we've been observing our team. Another concept that he talks about is he finds 3 to 5 focal points of that the team may be failing in or might be struggling with. Things like student culture, class size, emphasis on assessment, or workload. Basically, he did this so that he could give them tasks so that they could learn how to better all these skills. One of them that I'm going to talk about is student culture. Student culture is basically just him learning how these students live their lives. How do they interact with each other? You can do this in any work setting that you're in. You're able to observe their culture, then you're able to remove the barriers of things that they're really struggling with. Because as a leader, you don't want to just be a leader assigning tasks. You want to be a part of their culture. You want to be a part of their workplace. So by being able to integrate yourself into the community of your workplace, you're able to realize these barriers sooner than later. Because sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but I won't always say when I'm struggling.
Me either.
Yeah, it's hard to admit. So when you're immersed in their culture and you're able to see that and want to help your teammates and everyone that is under you and your followers, you're able to do better communication and better leadership.
Howdy, this is Charlie Abendroth again, and I will be discussing Equity Takes Center Stage. Equity is defined in our book, Building Leaders, as the perception of being treated fairly or how an individual is treated in comparison to those around them. People prioritize equity in times of adversity because it makes a huge difference. Most of the time, individuals are ready to extend themselves further, take on more responsibilities, and compromise as long as the costs are shared in an equal manner among all parties involved. When I stop and think about it and see someone going through adversity or something stressful, my instinct is to want to make them feel like they're not alone, carrying that burden alone, and so I step up and help where I can. For example, if my mom were to get sick, I'd want to do the dishes for her and take it off her plate. LOL. My dad will get the groceries, but even more, I suggest to my sister, hey, let's make mom dinner so we can relieve her of some of her normal tasks. And this allows her to just be able to rest and heal, and then me and my family will step up and help in the areas where she normally is doing things. If you want to take that to the workplace, per se, you and one other person are hired for a new job. Your role is to run the social media account, and the other person is hired for graphic design. You both probably won't get the same technology supplies. Like, you would probably need like an iPhone to run the social media accounts, and the graphic designer would need like a MacBook Pro to do all the software designs that they need to do. And so it's equitable because each person is getting their needs met in the same way, but they're not the same thing. Because people need different things. People sometimes need encouragement. People sometimes need a partner to help them do something. And equity is really just about like treating people fairly in the way that they need. And so in the article, Reference Selection and Determining Equity Perceptions by Scholl, Cooper, and McKenna, we see some of the outcomes of perceived inequity. For example, here's some of the behavioral and attitudinal responses to perceived inequity. And they are like differing contributions, probably lower level of motivation. Another one is different outcomes or rewards from the work you're doing or whatever it is. Another one is people leaving the field, not showing up for things or not really caring about what they're doing. And these can all really hurt whatever team you're working on, or even just yourself. Like, you need those things, especially in times of adversity. And it's obvious here that equity in the workplace, on a team, wherever it is really important to help the flow in the work of whatever task is at hand, especially during times of adversity.
This is Brenna Tender, and I will be talking about projecting what you may not feel in adversity. When dealing with adversity, it can be hard to hide your emotions. However, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to leading others through adversity is projecting emotions that you may not feel. It is important that as a leader, you can put your emotions aside and project resilience that leads to an active response. In our textbook, Paving the Path for Emergent Leaders, it quotes Jackson and Daly, who have noted that resilient leaders are not only able to survive in difficulty, but they are also able to model behavior that will enhance constituents' ability to thrive. It is not only about what challenges you are able to overcome, but rather how you handle them and how that shapes the people following you. When I think back to a time where I had to project emotions that I was not feeling, I think of when I was leading as a camp counselor for a group of 2nd and 3rd graders, and it was a really hot day with little to no shade, and the water jugs were empty. I had children that were really upset, but the leadership above me telling me that we needed to be outside doing the activities that they had set up for us. Although I was also hot and frustrated, I knew it was important for me to create an environment that was fun and full of positivity. Instead of sharing how tired, hot, and thirsty I was, I decided to hop in the game and make it more fun by adding all sorts of silly rules and challenges to get their minds off of what was bothering them. It would have been really easy for me to complain and listen to the reasons of why they were upset, but I knew that as their leader, I needed to create a space that may not have felt desirable to me in that moment. In the peer-reviewed journal, Virtuous Leadership by Michael Polanski, they share how courage and behavioral integrity creates image as a leader. As a leader in adversity, you may create As a leader in adversity, you must create trust between you and those that you are leading. They will not see your resilience or trust how you feel if they have never been given a reason to. In this journal, I saw how important it was for us as leaders to be courageous and have good intentions at all times to build relationship currency. Whenever you show others that you are trustworthy, you will be able to lead them through adversity much easier and healthier for everyone as a whole. Even if you do not feel these things at all times, it is important to remember that there are always people who are listening and soaking in your actions, and especially in times of adversity. They're looking for any amount of guidance that they can get. Projecting your game face and perseverance will then ripple through to produce action. We are able to look at other great leaders like Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was an incredible example of not projecting the fears and worries he may have had on our country, but rather led people into action and therefore brought us out of the greatest depression we have ever faced. It is all in the little times like I have experienced at kids camp, and the ones that go down in history like the Great Depression, where projecting feelings we may not feel become what helps others overcome adversity.
Hey, this is Michaela again. I hope you've learned some valuable skills regarding helping others with adversity. We're going to give you some final questions to really get you to think about the concept and let us know your answers in the comments. First, which of these 6 topics of adversity is most important, if there is one, and why? What's your biggest takeaway? What are some areas you can apply this in your life? What is a moment in your life where you utilized one of these 6 topics in helping others with adversity?
This is Gabrielle again. In summary, there are many aspects of helping others through adversity, and we have discussed ways to implement them into our roles as leaders. Our hope for you in this podcast is that you not only heard what we said, but apply as well. Thanks, and gig 'em.